Rejected by everyone, the Apache girl found love in a brave cowboy. The gentle wind whispered through the tall grasses, and the distant mountains stood quietly, watching over the land. In the midst of this beauty, a young Apache girl named Ayana walked slowly, her bare feet brushing against the soft earth. She carried herself with a quiet grace, though her eyes often held a sadness that was hard to hide. Every morning, she came to the plains to be alone, to escape the cold looks and harsh words of the townspeople who did not understand her. Ayana had always been different. She loved to explore the forests, climb trees, and watch the wildlife around her. She listened to the stories of her ancestors, stories that spoke of bravery, wisdom, and connection with the land. Yet, in the town where she lived, being different was not celebrated. Children often avoided her, and adults whispered behind her back. Ayana tried to be polite and kind, but no matter what she did, it seemed she could not fit in. Sometimes, when she passed the schoolyard, she could hear the laughter of other children, the sound of them playing games she wished she could join. Her heart would ache, but she knew they would never accept her as one of their own. Despite the loneliness, Ayana found small joys in the world around her. She loved the sound of birds singing at dawn, the sight of deer grazing near the river, and the feel of the wind rushing past her face as she ran through the open fields. The land had always been a friend to her, a companion that never judged or rejected her. In these quiet moments, she felt a connection to something greater, a sense that she belonged to the earth in a way that no town or village could ever understand. Her home was a small, modest cabin on the edge of the town, surrounded by a few trees and open land. Inside, it was simple but warm. Ayana lived with her grandmother, Nakamis, a wise and gentle woman who had raised her since she was a little girl. Nakamis always encouraged Ayana to be herself, to be proud of her heritage, and to embrace her unique talents. "The world may not see your worth now," Nakamis would say, "but your heart knows your strength. Never let anyone dim your light." Ayana listened to her grandmother's words, holding them close, though it was not always easy. Some days were heavier than others. When she walked through the streets of the town, people stared at her, their eyes filled with curiosity or disapproval. Shopkeepers would greet her politely, but then quickly look away. Other girls whispered to each other, casting sideways glances, and boys would sometimes mock her appearance or the way she spoke. Ayana learned early on to move quietly, to avoid drawing attention, and to carry her sadness in silence. One morning, as she wandered near the river, she spotted a young fox tangled in some vines. Its small body struggled, and its frightened eyes met hers. Ayana's heart swelled with compassion. She knelt carefully, speaking softly in words the fox could not understand, but that seemed to soothe it anyway. She untangled the vines slowly, making sure not to hurt the little creature. When it finally broke free, it paused for a moment, looking at her as if to say thank you, and then disappeared into the underbrush. Ayana smiled, feeling a small spark of happiness. Moments like these reminded her that kindness and bravery could exist even when the world around her felt cold and unwelcoming. Though she loved the quiet of the plains, she could not escape the reality of her life in town. At school, she sat alone, her books and notebooks her only companions. Teachers noticed her intelligence and curiosity, but often overlooked her socially. Ayana was careful not to let anger or hurt show, though inside, she sometimes felt a storm brewing. She wondered why the world could not see her for who she truly was. Why could they not understand that she had a brave heart, a sharp mind, and a spirit that longed to soar? One particular day, the town held a small fair. Children laughed and played games, while parents and visitors chatted happily. Ayana watched from the edge, her hands clasped tightly. She wanted to join, wanted to feel the excitement and warmth of being part of the crowd, but fear held her back. The whispers of judgment seemed louder than the cheerful music. She felt invisible, as if her presence would only be a distraction. Slowly, she turned away, walking back toward the quiet safety of the river. It was during these moments of solitude that Ayana discovered her true resilience. She learned to be patient with herself, to find strength in the smallest acts of courage. She taught herself to track animals, to gather herbs for her grandmother, and to understand the subtle language of the wind and the sky. Every day, she grew stronger, even if the town did not notice. The world outside might reject her, but she refused to reject herself. Her grandmother often reminded her that life had its seasons, much like the plains they lived on. "There will be times of growth, and there will be times of waiting," Nakamis said. Even the tallest trees were once small seedlings, facing storms and dry seasons. "You too will grow strong and find your place." Yana took these words to heart, knowing that patience and courage would guide her, even when the path seemed uncertain. As the weeks passed, Ayana's routine continued. Each morning she explored the plains. Each afternoon she returned home to her grandmother. She practiced weaving, painting, and listening to the stories of her ancestors. She even started writing her own stories, tales of bravery and hope, imagining worlds where she belonged completely and freely. These stories became her secret treasure, a way to nurture her imagination and her sense of self, even when the real world felt harsh and unforgiving. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the first stars appeared, Ayana sat by a small fire outside her cabin. She watched the flames dance and reflected on her life. She thought about the people who rejected her, the moments of loneliness, and the times she had felt invisible. But she also thought about the beauty of the land, the animals she had helped, and the knowledge that she carried within her. In that quiet moment, she realized that even if the world did not recognize her worth yet, she had something far more important: her own courage, her own kindness, and her own heart. And so, Ayana continued to live each day with quiet determination. She faced the town's rejection with resilience, finding joy in small victories and in the freedom of the open plains. She remained hopeful that someday she would find someone who could see her true self, someone who would not judge her by appearances or background, but by the bravery and love she carried within. For now, though, she had the plains, the river, the animals, her grandmother, and her own inner strength. And that was enough to keep her moving forward, step by step, toward the life she dreamed of, a life where she could finally be seen, understood, and cherished. As night fell and the stars sparkled above, Ayana whispered softly to herself, "One day my heart will find its place, and I will no longer be alone." She closed her eyes, feeling the cool breeze against her face, and allowed herself to imagine a brighter tomorrow. A tomorrow where the kindness in her heart would meet someone equally brave, someone who could walk beside her and understand the world as she did. For now, the plains were her companion, and the hope in her heart was a quiet flame that refused to go out. Life in the small town continued for Ayana, but it grew harder with each passing day. Though she had the wide plains, the river, and the forest to bring her peace, the town remained a place of cold stares and whispered words. People avoided her in the marketplace, children snickered when she walked by, and even teachers, though polite, seemed to keep her at a distance. Yana felt the weight of rejection deeply. Each insult, each glance, reminded her that she did not belong, at least not in their world. Yet she refused to let it crush her spirit entirely. At school, Ayana often sat alone in the corner of the classroom, her books her closest friends. She loved reading about distant lands, animals, and the lives of courageous people from the past. Every story she read gave her courage, even if her classmates did not understand her. Sometimes she would daydream during lessons, imagining herself as a brave explorer or a protector of the forest, someone whose presence brought hope and light instead of whispers and judgment. Her imagination became her secret refuge, a place where rejection could not touch her. Despite the isolation, Ayana never stopped trying to connect with the world around her. She would smile at children who passed by, wave at neighbors, or help with chores when asked. Yet, often her gestures were ignored or misunderstood. One afternoon, she offered to help a shopkeeper carry a basket of goods from the wagon into the store. The man accepted with a nod but barely looked at her as he hurried inside. The children watching from the street laughed quietly, and Yana felt a familiar pang of sadness. But she reminded herself that kindness was never wasted, even if it went unnoticed. Yana's grandmother, Nakamis, saw how her granddaughter struggled with loneliness. She often took Ayana aside in the evenings and spoke to her gently, teaching her about patience, courage, and the ways of their people. "People may not see your worth today, child," Nakamis said one night as they sat by the fire. "But you have a heart full of courage and a mind full of wisdom. Those who cannot see it are blind. Never let their blindness change who you are." Ayana listened intently, letting the words sink deep into her heart. Though it was hard to believe sometimes, Nakamis's words became a light in the darkness of rejection. In the afternoons, Ayana would often leave town and wander the plains or forests where she felt free. She learned to track animals by following footprints in the soft soil, to recognize the calls of different birds, and to notice the subtle signs of weather changes. These skills became a source of pride for her, something she could hold onto when the town rejected her. She began helping her grandmother gather herbs, prepare meals, and even teach younger children in secret about the land and the animals. Though the town did not acknowledge her talents, Ayana found satisfaction in using them, and in knowing that her knowledge was valuable. One day, while walking along the riverbank, Ayana noticed a family of ducks struggling to find safe food near the water. The river had been shallow due to a long, dry spell, and the smaller animals were finding it difficult to survive. Without hesitation, she began gathering plants and small insects to guide them toward the deeper part of the river. Hours passed, and the sun dipped low, but Ayana did not stop. By the time she returned home, the ducks were safe, and she felt a sense of accomplishment that no words from the town could ever diminish. Even as Ayana found these small victories, the rejection of the town grew more noticeable. During festivals or public gatherings, she was often left on the sidelines. Children played games in circles, but no one invited her to join. Women exchanged whispered conversations, glancing at her as if she were invisible, and men rarely spoke to her except when necessary. At times, the isolation made her feel as though she carried a heavy stone on her chest, a weight that grew heavier with each passing day. But Ayana learned to bear it quietly, channeling her energy into learning, observing, and becoming stronger inside. One afternoon, Ayana decided to explore a new part of the forest she had never visited before. The canopy of trees created cool shadows on the ground, and sunlight streamed through in gentle beams. Birds sang in the distance, and the scent of earth and leaves filled the air. Yana felt a sense of peace she rarely found in town. As she wandered deeper, she stumbled upon a small clearing where wildflowers grew in a rainbow of colors. She knelt and ran her fingers through the soft petals, feeling their delicate beauty. In that moment, she realized that even though the world of people might reject her, the world of nature always welcomed her with open arms. Despite her solitude, Ayana sometimes wondered if anyone could ever truly see her for who she was. She longed for someone who could look beyond her heritage, her quiet demeanor, and the way others ignored her. Someone who would appreciate her courage, her kindness, and her deep love for the world around her. This thought often stayed in her mind as she returned home each evening, but she did not allow it to turn into sadness. Instead, she held on to hope, small as it was, that someday life would bring her the connection she longed for. Yana's evenings were often spent with her grandmother, listening to old stories and learning about the strength of their ancestors. Nakamis taught her about the importance of staying true to oneself, even when the world did not understand. "Your heart is your guide, Ayana," she said one night, her eyes glowing in the firelight. "Do not let anyone tell you that it is not enough. The world may not welcome you now, but your courage and kindness will shine through when the time is right." These lessons stayed with Ayana, strengthening her resolve and helping her face each day with quiet determination. As the days passed, Ayana began practicing new skills she had always admired. She learned to craft small tools and simple baskets from reeds and branches, skills her grandmother had once used to provide for their family. She practiced running along the riverbanks, leaping over fallen logs and climbing trees with ease. Each new skill made her feel stronger, more capable, and more confident in herself. She realized that even if the town rejected her, she could still take pride in what she could do, in the way she could survive and thrive in the world around her. Sometimes, Ayana encountered other people in the forest or along the river, travelers passing through the town or other children from distant villages. She would offer a shy smile, and occasionally, someone would return it. These brief interactions were small reminders that not everyone judged her harshly, that kindness could be found even in unexpected places. Each encounter filled her with hope, reminding her that the world was larger than her small town, and that life could bring new friendships and connections if she remained patient and true to herself. One late afternoon, while exploring a rocky hill near the edge of the plains, Ayana found a wounded bird lying among the stones. Its wing was bent and it struggled to fly. She carefully picked it up, speaking softly to calm it, and carried it back to her cabin. For hours, she tended to the bird, using herbs and gentle care taught by her grandmother. When the bird finally fluttered its wings and took off into the sky, Ayana felt a deep sense of joy and pride. She realized that even small acts of compassion and bravery could make a difference in the world, and that her heart, full of care and courage, was something to cherish, not hide. Despite the continued rejection she faced in town, Ayana's life became a balance between solitude, self-discovery, and quiet acts of kindness. Each day, she learned more about herself and the world around her, finding strength in patience, courage, and hope. She understood that her journey would not be easy, but she also knew that her spirit was resilient, that her heart was brave, and that someday life might bring her the connection she so longed for. As night fell and the stars appeared in the sky, Ayana often sat by the river, watching the reflection of the moon on the water. She thought about the people in town, the whispers, and the rejection, but she also thought about the beauty of the world, the animals she had helped, and the strength growing inside her. She whispered to herself, "I will find my place. I will find someone who sees me, who understands me, and who will walk beside me." These words became her quiet promise to herself, a beacon of hope in the darkness of loneliness. And so, Ayana continued her days, facing hardship with courage, seeking solace in nature, and nurturing her spirit with hope. The world might not yet see her worth, but she knew it was there, burning quietly, ready to shine when the right moment arrived. Each sunrise brought a new chance. Each act of kindness and bravery strengthened her heart, and each day brought her closer to the life she dreamed of, a life where she could belong, be accepted, and perhaps even find love. Spring had arrived on the plains, painting the land with bright green grasses and colorful wildflowers. The river sparkled under the warm sunlight, and birds filled the skies with their cheerful songs. Ayana loved this season because it brought new life and energy, reminding her that even after long winters of loneliness, growth was possible. She wandered the fields and forests daily, gathering herbs, observing animals, and enjoying the quiet freedom that only the open land could provide. One morning, while Ayana explored a path near the edge of the forest that she had never visited before, she heard the distant sound of hooves striking the earth. Curious, she followed the noise, peeking through the trees. In a small clearing, she saw a young cowboy riding a horse with skill and confidence. His dark eyes scanned the land, and his posture showed strength and courage. There was a calm, quiet power about him, as if he belonged entirely to the vast plains he rode across. The cowboy noticed her almost immediately, and Ayanna froze, unsure whether to hide or step forward. His horse slowed as he approached the forest's edge, and he dismounted gracefully. "Hello there," he called softly, not in a commanding way but in a friendly tone that made Ayanna feel slightly at ease. "Are you lost?" Gianna shook her head, feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity. "No, I like to walk here," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, and she felt her cheeks flush under his gaze. She had rarely met anyone in the town who spoke to her without judgment or mockery. The cowboy smiled gently, sensing her hesitation. "I'm Caleb," he said. "I've been traveling through these plains for a while. It's a big land and it's easy to get turned around, but don't worry, I can help if you ever need it." There was something honest and reassuring in his words, something that made Ayanna feel a little spark of hope. Over the next few days, Ayanna saw Caleb again. Sometimes he would ride near the river or help a farmer with chores. Whenever their paths crossed, he greeted her warmly, and slowly, Ayanna began to respond with shy smiles. It was a new experience for her, someone who looked at her without judgment, who treated her as if she were simply another person, not someone to be feared or mocked. One afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in over the plains. Dark clouds covered the sky and rain began to pour heavily. Gianna, caught near the river, tried to find shelter but slipped on the wet rocks. Her ankle twisted painfully and she cried out, unable to stand. Within moments, Caleb appeared, having seen her from a distance. Without hesitation, he ran through the rain, helping her to her feet and supporting her as he guided her back to a small cabin nearby. Inside the cabin, Caleb carefully wrapped her ankle, using water and clean cloths to reduce the swelling. He spoke calmly, telling her it would be all right, and for the first time, Ayanna felt a real sense of safety with someone outside her grandmother. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling, not only from the pain but also from the strange comfort his presence brought her. Caleb smiled softly, and she noticed there was no hint of judgment or pity in his eyes, only care. As weeks passed, Caleb and Ayanna began spending more time together. He shared stories of his travels across the plains, of towns and rivers and mountains he had seen. He spoke of bravery, not just in the sense of fighting or adventure, but in facing challenges and helping others. Ayanna listened eagerly, captivated by his words. She realized he valued kindness, courage, and honesty, the very qualities she had always cherished but had felt were ignored by her town. Ayanna, in turn, began to open up about her own world. She showed Caleb the paths she often explored, the animals she cared for, and the herbs she gathered for her grandmother. She taught him how to listen to the wind and the subtle signs of the land. Caleb listened with genuine interest, never mocking or dismissing her knowledge. He treated her like an equal, as if her experience and perspective mattered. This respect was something Ayanna had rarely received, and it made her heart swell with gratitude. One day, as the sun set over the plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ayanna and Caleb found themselves sitting together near a small creek. The sound of flowing water filled the air, and the wind gently rustled the leaves of nearby trees. Caleb picked up a smooth stone from the ground and tossed it lightly into the water, watching the ripples spread. "You have a special way of seeing the world," he said softly. "Not everyone notices the small, important things." Ayanna smiled shyly, her fingers brushing against the grass. "I've had to notice them," she said quietly. "When the world doesn't accept you, you learn to find beauty and meaning in the things that stay true, even when people don't." Caleb nodded thoughtfully, understanding her words more than she expected. As their friendship grew, Ayanna felt a warmth in her chest she had never experienced before. She found herself looking forward to seeing Caleb each day, eager to share her discoveries and listen to his stories. And Caleb, too, began to feel a connection that went beyond simple friendship. He admired Ayana's courage, her intelligence, and her gentle heart. He saw in her a strength that the town had failed to recognize, and it made him respect her even more. One afternoon, a group of children from the town came near the river, laughing and playing games. They saw Ayana and Caleb together and began to whisper and point. Some shouted teasing remarks, mocking her for spending time with an outsider. Ayana's first instinct was to shrink back, to hide from the embarrassment and anger she often felt in similar situations. But Caleb stepped forward calmly. "Ignore them," he said quietly. "They don't understand you, and that's their problem, not yours." Ayana took a deep breath, letting his words settle in. For the first time, she felt a sense of protection and support she had never known. She realized that she did not need the approval of the town to value herself or her worth. With Caleb by her side, she felt braver, stronger, and more confident. Together, they continued their walk along the river, ignoring the whispers and laughter. And in that moment, Ayana knew that she had found someone who saw her, not just the exterior, but her heart and her spirit. As spring turned into early summer, Caleb and Ayana shared many adventures. They explored hidden paths in the forest, tracked deer and rabbits, and watched the sunset from hilltops. Caleb often laughed at her curiosity and her excitement over small discoveries, and Ayana learned to laugh with him, feeling a joy that had been absent from her life for too long. Their bond grew quietly but steadily, built on respect, understanding, and shared experiences. One evening, while resting near the river after a long day of exploring, Caleb turned to Ayana with a thoughtful expression. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," he said. "Not in a way that makes you strange, but in a way that makes you remarkable. Brave, kind, and strong. I've never seen someone care for the world like you do." Ayana felt her heart beat faster. She had longed for someone to see her in this way, to recognize her courage and her kindness. For the first time, she did not feel invisible, ignored, or rejected. She felt seen, and in that recognition, a new feeling began to blossom inside her, a sense of trust, hope, and perhaps even love. Caleb's presence became a safe harbor in her life, a place where rejection from the town no longer mattered. With him, Ayana could be herself without fear. She could speak freely, laugh openly, and explore boldly. And Caleb, in turn, learned from her, gaining a deeper appreciation for the land, for kindness, and for the quiet courage that often goes unnoticed. Together, they discovered that friendship, respect, and shared experiences could build a bond stronger than judgment or prejudice. As the night fell and stars twinkled above the plains, Ayana and Caleb sat side by side, listening to the gentle sounds of the river and the distant calls of night birds. Ayana realized that this connection was something rare, something precious. She thought about the long years of loneliness, the rejection she had faced, and the courage it had taken to keep moving forward. And now, with Caleb by her side, she understood that some of the greatest rewards in life come when patience, courage, and hope meet opportunity. In that quiet night, Ayana whispered to herself, "Maybe this is the beginning of something new. Maybe someone will see me for who I truly am." And she looked at Caleb, who smiled back at her with quiet understanding, as if he, too, knew that their friendship was becoming something far deeper and meaningful. Summer had fully arrived, and the plains were alive with the sound of rustling grasses, buzzing insects, and the laughter of animals hidden in the forests. The days were long, the sun warm, and the river glittered under the brilliant sky. For Ayana, these days felt lighter than any she had known in years. The presence of Caleb, the brave cowboy, had brought a new energy into her life. Their friendship, which had started with cautious greetings and polite conversations, had grown into something far deeper. Together, they explored the land, sharing stories, discovering hidden corners of the plains, and learning from one another. Each morning, Ayana would rise early, feeling the cool wind on her face as she walked through the dew-covered grass. She carried a small satchel filled with herbs, a notebook for her sketches and stories, and sometimes simple food to share with Caleb when they met. Caleb, on his part, often rode in from the far side of the plains, his horse strong and steady, bringing a sense of adventure and excitement wherever he went. Their meeting was never forced. Each encounter was natural, flowing as if the land itself had guided them together. One sunny afternoon, they ventured into a part of the forest Ayana had never dared to explore alone. The trees were taller here, their branches forming a thick canopy overhead, and the forest floor was covered in moss and fallen leaves. Birds sang in the treetops, and small animals scurried through the underbrush. Ayana led the way, her knowledge of the forest making her a confident guide. Caleb followed closely, impressed by her ability to read the signs of nature, the rustle of leaves indicating nearby animals, the subtle scent of plants, and the tracks left on the soft soil. "You're incredible," Caleb said quietly as they paused near a small clearing. "You see things most people wouldn't even notice." Ayana smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "I've had to," she said. "When people don't notice or understand you, you learn to pay attention to the world itself. Nature never judges you, it just is." They spent hours wandering through the forest, collecting berries, observing animals, and laughing over small discoveries. Yana showed Caleb how to follow animal tracks, recognize edible plants, and listen to the subtle sounds of the forest. Caleb shared stories of his travels, tales of distant towns, rivers, and mountains he had crossed. Through these exchanges, Ayana realized how much she could learn from him, just as he learned from her. Their friendship was a balance of teaching and learning, of sharing and appreciating each other's talents. As summer progressed, Caleb and Ayana began taking small trips across the plains. They rode horses together, raced along riverbanks, and sometimes simply sat on hilltops, watching the sunset in silence. These quiet moments were filled with unspoken understanding. Yana began to notice small details, the way Caleb's eyes softened when he spoke to animals, the way he listened intently when she shared her thoughts, and the gentle strength in his hands when he helped her over rocks or through tricky paths. Each gesture, though simple, filled her with a sense of trust and comfort she had never felt before. One day, they came across a small herd of deer trapped near a fence, unable to reach the safety of the forest. The animals were frightened, stamping their hooves and calling out softly. Yana's heart leapt with concern, and she immediately devised a plan. "We need to guide them gently," she said. "If we rush them, they'll panic." Caleb nodded, and together they worked carefully, opening a section of the fence and gently herding the deer toward the forest. Caleb's skill with the horse helped create space and prevent the deer from running into danger, while Ayana's calm voice and careful movements reassured the frightened animals. After a tense hour, all the deer were safe, disappearing into the trees. Ayana felt a surge of pride and joy, but even more importantly, she felt a sense of connection with Caleb. Together, they had accomplished something meaningful, and she realized how much she trusted him, not just in friendship but in partnership. Their days continued in a similar rhythm, filled with adventure, laughter, and shared learning. Ayana began opening up more about her dreams, hopes, and fears. She told Caleb about the loneliness she had endured in town, the rejection from her peers, and the quiet determination she had nurtured to survive and thrive. Caleb listened with genuine care, never interrupting or judging, and in return, he shared his own struggles and experiences. Through these conversations, Ayana felt an emotional closeness she had never experienced before. She began to understand that love could grow not only through grand gestures, but also through trust, respect, and shared understanding. One evening, as they sat beside the river watching the sun dip below the horizon, Caleb turned to Ayana with a gentle expression. "You're amazing, Ayana," he said softly. Not just for what you do or what you know, but for who you are. Your heart, it's brave and kind in a way I've never seen before. Gianna felt her cheeks warm, her heart fluttering in a way that was new and exciting. She looked down at her hands, unsure of what to say. I've never had anyone say that to me, she admitted quietly. Most people, they don't understand me, they never see me. Caleb reached out, lightly touching her shoulder. I see you, he said simply, all of you. And I respect you for it. The words filled Ayanna with a mixture of joy and hope. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as someone strange or different, but as a person with value, courage, and heart. In that moment, a deep bond began to form between them, one that went beyond friendship. It was quiet, growing slowly, but undeniable. As the summer days passed, Ayanna and Caleb faced small challenges together. They helped villagers repair fences, guided lost travelers, and rescued animals in danger. Each act of bravery and kindness brought them closer, building trust and respect. Yana realized that love was not always about grand declarations. It was also about partnership, shared values, and unwavering support. Caleb's presence made her stronger, braver, and more confident in herself. One afternoon, while resting on a hill overlooking the plains, Yana noticed Caleb watching her quietly. "What is it?" she asked. He smiled softly. "I was just thinking, I've never met anyone like you. You face the world with courage even when it rejects you. You care for others even when no one else notices. That strength, it inspires me." Yana's heart swelled. She realized that she too felt inspired by Caleb, not just by his courage but by his kindness, his respect for her, and the way he saw the world. Their bond had grown into something rare and precious, built on mutual admiration, trust, and understanding. As summer began to wane, they spent evenings sitting by the river, watching the stars appear one by one. Yana felt a deep sense of peace and belonging she had never known. She no longer feared loneliness as she once had, for she had found someone who accepted her fully and encouraged her to be her true self. Caleb, too, had found someone who challenged him to see the world differently, someone whose courage and kindness had touched his heart. One evening, as the firelight flickered and the cool breeze passed through the trees, Caleb reached for Ayanna's hand. She looked at him, her heart beating quickly, and he smiled. "I don't know what the future holds," he said softly, "but I do know this: I want to be by your side wherever life takes us." Yana felt tears welling in her eyes. For years, she had dreamed of someone who would see her for who she truly was, someone who would accept her and walk beside her. Now, in this quiet moment, she realized that dream was coming true. She squeezed his hand gently, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want that too." The night fell gently around them, the stars shining like tiny lanterns across the sky. In that peaceful moment, Ayanna felt a sense of love and connection she had never imagined possible. She knew that challenges might still come, the town might still be unkind, and the world might still judge, but with Caleb by her side, she felt ready to face anything. As they sat together, watching the river reflect the silver moonlight, Ayanna realized something important. Love was not just about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It was about respect, trust, understanding, and shared experiences. It was about someone seeing her for who she truly was and valuing every part of her. And in Caleb, she had found exactly that. Their friendship had blossomed into love slowly and naturally, like the river carving its path through the land. It was strong, steady, and filled with warmth. Ayanna knew that she had found not only a partner in adventure, but a companion for life, a person who would walk beside her through challenges, celebrate her victories, and share the beauty of the world with her. As the night deepened and the plains grew quiet, Ayanna leaned her head on Caleb's shoulder. She felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that she was no longer alone. The loneliness she had endured for so long was slowly fading, replaced by trust, hope, and a love that had grown from friendship, courage, and shared experiences. and as the stars twinkled above, Ayana whispered softly, "I am not invisible anymore. I am seen, I am valued, and I am loved." Caleb's hand tightened gently around hers, and together they sat in the quiet of the night, ready to face whatever the future might hold. The warm days of late summer had begun to give way to the cooler breezes of early autumn. The plains were still green, but hints of gold and orange painted the grasses and trees. The river flowed gently, reflecting the changing colors of the sky. For Ayana, these days were filled with a quiet happiness she had never known before. Caleb was by her side almost every day, exploring the land, sharing stories, and helping her feel stronger, braver, and more confident. Together, they had built a bond of trust and love, and each day brought them closer. Despite their happiness, life was not without challenges. Some townspeople still whispered about Ayana, making unkind comments about her heritage and the way she carried herself. Others were simply cautious, unsure how to treat someone who had always been considered an outsider. At first, Ayana felt the familiar sting of rejection. But now, with Caleb by her side, she faced these moments differently. His calm support reminded her that she did not need the approval of everyone to know her worth. One afternoon, the town held a small festival to celebrate the harvest. Children ran through the streets, laughter echoing, while vendors sold fruits, vegetables, and handcrafted goods. Music filled the air and families gathered to enjoy the warmth of the day. Ayana stood at the edge of the festival, unsure whether to join. She felt the familiar fear of rejection creeping in, remembering years of being ignored and judged. Caleb noticed her hesitation and gently took her hand. "Come on," he said softly. "You belong here as much as anyone else. Let's just enjoy the day together." Yana hesitated but then allowed him to lead her into the festival. As they walked through the colorful tents and lively crowd, she noticed that some people were watching her closely, whispering. For a moment, doubt and fear filled her chest. But Caleb squeezed her hand and she felt a surge of courage. She held her head high and began to smile. To her surprise, a few children from the town approached, curious about her. They had seen her with Caleb before, helping animals or exploring the plains, and something in their expressions had changed. They no longer mocked her. Instead, they asked questions about the plants she carried and the stories she knew. Yana answered with gentle patience, sharing small pieces of her knowledge and experience. Caleb stood nearby, proud and encouraging, showing his respect for her abilities and wisdom. As the day continued, more townspeople began to approach, recognizing the courage and kindness that Ayana had always carried, but that they had failed to notice. Some apologized for past unkindness, while others simply offered smiles and greetings. Yana felt a mixture of relief and quiet pride. She realized that the town's perception was beginning to change, not because she had tried to force it, but because she had stayed true to herself and shown her worth through actions and heart. After the festival, Caleb and Ayana took a quiet walk along the riverbank. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. They sat together on a large rock, listening to the gentle flow of the river and the soft rustle of the grasses in the breeze. "You've changed things," Caleb said quietly, looking at Ayana. "Not by fighting or arguing, but just by being yourself. People are starting to see what I've always known. You're brave, kind, and remarkable." Ayana felt warmth spread through her chest. She leaned against him, feeling the comfort of his presence. "I never thought I'd be accepted," she admitted. "But now it feels like maybe I belong here after all." Caleb smiled gently. "You do belong. You've always belonged. You just had to show them who you really are." And now they're finally beginning to understand. As autumn deepened, Ayana and Caleb continued their adventures across the plains. They helped villagers repair fences damaged by storms, guided travelers safely through the forests, and rescued animals in need. Each act strengthened their bond and reinforced the love and respect they had for one another. Gianna felt a growing confidence in herself, no longer burdened by the weight of constant rejection. She had found a partner who believed in her, who supported her, and who inspired her to continue being brave and kind. One crisp morning, while riding together across a hill that overlooked the town, Caleb stopped and looked at Ayanna with a serious expression. "I want to ask you something," he said, his voice calm but filled with meaning. Ayanna looked at him, curiosity and anticipation shining in her eyes. "I've been thinking," Caleb continued, "about our life together, about the adventures we've shared and the challenges we've faced. I don't want to imagine a future without you by my side. Gianna, will you walk with me through life, not just across the plains, but wherever it takes us?" Gianna felt her heart leap. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she realized the depth of his words and the love behind them. She reached out and took his hands in hers, feeling the strength and sincerity in his touch. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. "I will walk with you, Caleb, wherever life takes us." From that day forward, their partnership became stronger, not just in love but in purpose. Together, they worked to make the town a better place. Gianna shared her knowledge of the land, teaching children and adults alike about plants, animals, and the ways of nature. Caleb helped guide the town through challenges, always respectful of Ayanna's insights and wisdom. Slowly, the town transformed from a place of rejection to a community that recognized and valued her contributions. The change was not immediate, and some skepticism remained. Yet Caleb's respect and Ayanna's courage inspired others to see beyond prejudice and fear. Families began inviting Ayanna to gatherings. Children asked her questions about the land, and neighbors greeted her with genuine smiles. She had not only earned acceptance, but had also created a bridge of understanding between her heritage and the wider community. One evening, as they sat on a hill watching the sunset, Ayanna and Caleb reflected on their journey. "Do you remember when we first met?" Gianna asked, her voice soft but filled with emotion. Caleb laughed lightly. "Of course. You were wary of me and I was curious about you. I had no idea then how important you would become to me." Gianna smiled, her heart full. "I never imagined I'd find someone who understood me, someone who saw me for who I really am." "You've always been amazing," Caleb said gently. "I just got lucky enough to notice it." Their lives continued in this rhythm, filled with love, respect, and shared adventures. Together they rode across the plains, explored hidden forests, and helped the town and the land thrive. Their love was quiet yet powerful, built on trust, courage, and the knowledge that they had found someone who truly understood them. As the seasons changed, so did the town. People began to respect and admire Ayanna for her wisdom, bravery, and kindness. She became a symbol of hope, showing that courage and perseverance could overcome prejudice and misunderstanding. With Caleb by her side, she no longer felt the sting of rejection. She had found not only love but also a place where she could be herself, fully accepted and cherished. On a clear autumn morning, Ayanna and Caleb rode together across the plains, the wind in their hair and the sun warming their faces. The vast landscape stretched out before them, full of promise and freedom. They laughed and talked, sharing dreams of the future and plans for new adventures. In that moment, Ayanna felt complete, a life filled with love, purpose, and belonging. As they reached the top of a hill overlooking the town and the plains beyond, Caleb paused and looked at Ayanna. "We've come a long way," he said softly. Ayanna nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, we have, and we've done it together." They rode down the hill, side by side, ready to face whatever the future might bring. The town, once a place of rejection, now embraced her. The plains, always a place of solace, were filled with the promise of new adventures. And at the heart of it all was their love, a love born from trust, courage, and shared experiences, strong enough to withstand the past and bright enough to shine into the future. Ayanna had learned that being true to oneself, showing kindness, and having courage could change not only her life but the lives of those around her. She had faced rejection, loneliness, and doubt, yet she had never given up. And in the end, she found love with Caleb, a brave and compassionate partner who respected her for who she truly was. Together, they had created a life filled with hope, acceptance, and joy. As the sun set and painted the sky with shades of orange, pink, and purple, Ayanna whispered to herself, "I am seen, I am valued, and I am loved." Caleb held her hand tightly, and together they rode toward the horizon, ready for all the adventures and happiness that awaited them. The plain stretched endlessly before them, full of freedom, beauty, and the promise of a bright future. And in that moment, Ayanna knew that she had finally found her place, not just in the town, but in the world and in a heart that would always cherish hers.